Good evening. Welcome to Paranormal Lens. My name is Chad Thomas. That's Jamie Widener. We're here every Tuesday night. We thank everybody for joining us tonight. It should be an interesting, exciting night. Jamie, what's going on?
Oh, sir, it is. It's freaking cold outside. Is what's going on.
Uh-huh.
All of a sudden, winter started before spring or fall ended. And I think we talked about this last week, but wasn't it like April 3 weeks ago? So, you
It
know,
it definitely felt like it. Yeah,
Thanksgiving happened. Hope you had a good time,
we
friends,
did.
family, all the good gatherings, lots of food.
Yep.
Um, we got a little getaway ourselves. That was nice. Down to Rehoboth, hit the beach. It's gorgeous in the winter. No winter. I feel like it's winter because it's 30 outside, but
Uh-huh.
it's great this time of year because there's nobody around. The streets are no parking meters, which is great.
Even
Um,
better.
yeah, it's a huge asset there.
Uh-huh.
We do like the Black Friday thing in town. It's fun. It's never that busy. Nice. Little grotto pizza, make it happen.
Cool.
Nice dinner on Thanksgiving. So it's been a bit of a tradition last couple of years. So good
Mhm.
times. Good
Yep.
times.
Yep. Cool. So we're going to talk about Skinwalker Ranch tonight. That's you, right? No,
Me?
me?
Mm-mm.
No,
I think it's
no, no. I know who it
wait,
is.
oh,
We have a guest tonight.
that guy.
That
Yeah.
guy. So our guest tonight is Steve Dills. Steve is the director of Transcend Paranormal. He's the president of the Hanover Tavern Foundation in Virginia, and an investigator and historian for the Paraflix show The Ghost Finders. He is a self-proclaimed nerd that likes talking, debating, and complaining, but dislikes giving speeches and losing arguments to his wife. Uh, Besides his wonderful wife, Jessica, Steve has two children, Cora and Alex. I met Steve in the summer of 2022 at the Paravation Paracon in Strasburg, Virginia. Then I ran into him at the Gettysburg Bash for the last couple of years. So when I go to a Paracon, Jamie, I like to sit in on the
Yeah.
speed, presentations, not just go around and talk to everybody.
Right.
Um, both times I watched Steve present, I was impressed with his like candor and his style and what he talked about. And this summer he did a ranch or a presentation on the Skinwalker Ranch, and I was like, we got to get Steve on. And I asked him if he would do it, and he said yes. So we're here. So let's welcome Steve.
You're gonna
Hey,
make me
Steve.
blush, Chad.
How's it going, Steve?
Hey,
Good.
good evening.
How's it going, everybody? Good
Good.
evening.
So I bet it's not as cold where you are.
I don't know. It's still cold. I'm not. I mean, I do. God. So I like the cold, but like snow is a no go for me.
Yeah.
So I'm good. Hi Angie. So I am good with cold, but like it's hard pass on the snow.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna pass
Definitely.
fast track. Like I don't know.
So
I don't like sweating though. So like that is a no go for me.
so
Take it
you like
cold.
it in right in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, like but I mean, on the flip side, I do like the Caribbean. So like, if anybody wants to like donate to the Steve's Retiring Caribbean Fund, I'll take that. But I like
If you're available, right?
yeah, it's available. It's fine. It's
Well,
open.
cool. So
Donations are open. Hi Thomas. Hi Jody. How are you guys doing? Look at everybody. Aw, that's
so
fun.
yeah, it's great to have all the people who follow Steve here tonight. We really
Yeah.
appreciate
Hey, we actually have an audience. Woohoo!
What do you mean? This is
Oh, we
good.
do. We do. We have some. We have tens and tens of fans.
Yeah,
So yeah.
like me.
Thank you.
Like my bank account, tens of dollars.
Yep.
No, Dan didn't offer to take me on his cruise. No, and he sent me a picture. He's swimming with pigs, like little baby piglets, and I was very jealous. I don't
Wow.
know, like swimming with baby pigs was not on my bucket list until today, and now I want to swim with pigs in the Caribbean. So
Yeah, I didn't even know it was a thing.
I didn't
It's never a
either,
thing until it's a thing.
and
Yeah.
now it's a thing, and now I want to do it. So here we are with no pigs.
Yeah. So, well, let's jump into some paranormal stuff.
Yeah, let's talk spooky.
So we thought we'd ask you a few questions first to get things warmed up before we jumped into the ranch. But so, what got you into the paranormal, Steve?
You're going on Monday, Angie. Why didn't you take me with you then, Angie? Um, so I got into the paranormal very young. And I'll try to give you this simplified version because we can be here for like all night. So, moved to Virginia, and the very first house that we moved into, brand new house, um, and just for whatever reason had lots of activity. Further down the line, I kind of realized and figured that out.
Mhm.
But lots of activity moving into this house. I, for whatever reason, was the wonderful target. It's probably my stunning, charming good looks, but um, for whatever reason, you can laugh. That was a joke. For whatever reason, I was targeted, and I would have. It started with having my name whispered, uh, into my ear at night, which turned into hearing my name screamed into my ear, bedroom doors and closet doors opening and closing. I got sick for a number of months and no idea what was wrong with me. Um, Doctors had no idea. By all accounts, I was perfectly fine, but I stopped eating, and just was not acting myself. Very, very out of it for quite some time. Um, and then I would hear the piano playing in the middle of the night. And we had a piano, but nobody was playing it at 3 a.m. because if you were, then my mother would come and beat the ever living shit out of you.
Right.
Like immediately afterwards. So nobody played the piano at 3 a.m. Um, and that started to just progressively get worse and worse. I would see full body apparitions. I would see one of the weirdest things was doppelgangers, but it was a doppelganger of the family dog, not of a person, of our pet dog, and would see him
So,
outside, inside, all these sorts of things. It was the weirdest thing. But for example, I remember walking out the front door to go and play. We lived in a neighborhood, right? Lots of people, lots of
mhm.
kids. So walked outside and was playing in the front yard, and then all of a sudden I see our family dog walk through the front yard. And I'm so like, what are you doing out here? Like, it's a neighborhood, like, so we didn't want our dog to get hit by a car, so we um wouldn't let him out without a leash, right?
Right.
So I'm like, you got to get inside. So I remember kind of like, hey, go inside. I didn't touch him or anything, but I was like, you got to go inside. And so he walked into our garage, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he's in now. And then I was like, well, maybe let me double check. Let me make sure he actually like got inside and not just sitting in the garage. And so I went into the garage. He wasn't there. I went in, and this was a very weird house, and the garage was attached to the basement, so I had to go upstairs. And there, the dog is sitting on my mom's lap, asleep. Just his head. He was a big dog, but just he was asleep. And
Mhm.
so I remember saying, well, I'm surprised, like he fell asleep really quick. And my mom had been sitting there watching TV for an hour, and she's like, he's been sitting with me the whole time. And I'm like, well, I just saw him outside. She's like, no, you didn't. Um, and so
Wow.
that is like one of many times that I would see my not dog with, and then shortly after, nope, there's the dog. That was not my dog. Um, and so that that spanned for 2 years. My parents ended up building a house, and so we moved into there. And as she puts it, 2 years too long. She was having experiences herself. Um, my sister was too young to kind of realize all that stuff, and my dad is an avid. Um, You're crazy. There's nothing wrong. Now he does find it interesting, but back then he was like, nope, I don't see nothing. I hear nothing. Everything's fine.
So he
And I was
didn't want to admit that anything was happening because he didn't want to.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
I got it. Got it.
And so now he'll talk about it, but back then, oh no, there's nothing. You're just you're crazy, and I'm like, no. But and so that, I mean, that was, as a kid, that was terrifying. Like
Hmm.
it was an absolute nightmare for me to go home at the end of the day after school. And so I, I realized, first off, that sparked my interest. I was like, I'm interested. I want to know what the heck is going on. Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening at my house? And so that sparked me. Once I got a car, once I got into college, I started investigating. Um, but then I realized very quickly that, hey, by the way, this didn't just happen to you. This is happening to tons of people, right? And this is happening to other folks in their homes, other kids. And so that's when I kind of got to the well, maybe I can use my own battle scars to help others, right? Like, I'm not saying I'm going to walk into your house and be like, be gone, but at least I can give some context and build some meaning around what people are
Mhm.
experiencing. So it goes from a level of I am terrified of going home and I'd rather stay at school, which no child wants to do, uh, to okay, I understand what's going on. Yeah, it's a little freaky, but I at least have some sort of understanding of what's happening. And so that's kind of what got me into the field is, you know, first off my own experiences, but then wanting to explore and understand what was happening to me, and then translating that to how can I help other people.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
That's a great story. It's important that people do that and help other people figure out what's going on in their lives. So that's really cool. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not fun to be terrified of home. Like that is your safe space.
right.
So when you feel like you can't go home, like that is not a place you want to be.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you what the scariest place that you investigated was, but I think you may have already answered that question. So,
I mean that is a creepy place. The layout of that house was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I've
mhm.
never seen a layout of that style in I don't know. But gosh, creepiest place or scariest place. In terms of activity, just the sheer amount of activity and feeling like somebody was in the building with us to the point that we ended up calling and getting Cindy, the kind of like their paranormal director there, um, Sweet Spring Sanatorium. Um,
Okay.
it's in West Virginia. It is way off the beaten path. I'm talking like when you head out there, you better have it in your GPS system beforehand because you will lose signal about 30 minutes before you get there. Um, bring all your food, you pack in and pack out. That is how far out there it is.
Okay.
Um, so like it is not somewhere that you would expect anybody to just randomly show up um, or squatting. It's a massive building
Right.
and the entire I mean, I've been there twice now, and both times the activity gets to the point that you are almost 100% certain that somebody is in the building with you. I mean, full on footsteps above you in the rooms, people talking in the rooms next to you. Like literally, you're walking down the hallway. I remember this from our last time we were there. Uh, one of my teammates and I are walking down the hallway listening to people talking in the rooms on either side of us. But you peer in and it goes dead quiet. There's nobody in there. Um, and so like that is very weird to get used to as like a
Yeah.
norm. Uh, and it was weird. When we were filming, and Thomas mentioned in a must watch episode from the Ghost Finders, when we were filming, um, our camera guy Jose got attacked.
Yeah, I
Uh,
watched. That was one of the first episodes you did with them, I think.
That was yeah, yeah. That
Okay.
was wow. That was the very first episode. Um, and so I didn't know what to expect. Like that was the first time I had filmed with Ghost Finders. I had met everybody ahead of time, but very new to filming. I didn't know what the heck I was
Hmm.
doing. So, um, and I remember I was filming with Melody. We were down near the kitchen. If anybody's familiar with the building, we were down in the kitchen and all of a sudden we start hearing this screaming coming from upstairs. And so I look at Melody and I'm like, what are we like? This is not gonna be like, good content. Like, we're trying to film like, okay, we're walking into this kitchen, we're talking about like, we need to be careful because there's certain places in there that you could trip, you fall, hurt yourself, etc.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden you're screaming in the background, and I'm like, that's probably gonna be like, you know, cut. And so she's like, yeah, this is, that's let me radio. So she radios up there and she's like, hey, we're filming. I don't know what you guys are doing. And we get a call back, just Max saying, hey, Jose's been attacked. We got to get him back downstairs. We're cutting for now. And so we're like, holy shit, what the fuck? So excuse my French. I'm sorry, everybody. And so I'm like, I don't know if I don't know what's going on. And usually I just being Steve, tend to take the lead on things, and so I'm like, I want to stay in my lane, but I got to make sure this dude's okay. And so we're running, trying to get upstairs. We get up there and realize they're already back at headquarters. So we run back downstairs. We get there, and Jose is out of it, completely out of it. Um, they are praying over him, and uh, he is sitting in this chair, this fold up chair, and he is just staring straight, like completely out of it. Like he is there but not there. The lights are off. Um,
Mhm.
and it was the weirdest thing. And so, you know, I'm like, what happened? What happened? What's going on? And they're praying over him because something happened. And so we decide, hey, let's run upstairs. Let's get the camera. Um, we get up there. All of the camera equipment that Jose had, and by the way, it was all Jose's, so it's not like he would just do this, but it's all just tossed all over the floor, just spread all over in this hallway. And so we're up there like picking up pieces of his camera, like expensive pieces of his camera. And we come downstairs, we bring everything down, and we start reviewing the feed. And that's when I saw that, like, this is real. Like, this is something that actually occurred. And he literally was tossed from one side of the hallway clear across the other side. He hits the ground and he starts seizing. Now, we have it so, like, you have to, you fill out your history, your medical history and everything.
Mhm.
He had no medical history of seizures or anything like that. And so that was very, very scary. Um, we end up taking him outside because he's just still out of it. And before that happens, before we decided, made the call, like, you got to get off the property, I walk over to him because everybody's, looking at the camera trying to figure out what exactly happened. There were only three people up there. It was like Jose, Dan, and Cindy, and Max. Excuse me. There were four of them up there, and so the rest of us are trying to piece together what went on.
All right.
And in the meantime, he's still sitting over in this chair, just out of it. And I look over at him, and he's just kind of like making direct eye contact with me, and I'm like, Jose, you okay, buddy? Like, you all right? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I got to go down. And I said, down? Like, you need to lay on the floor down? Like, you want me to lay you on the floor? He's like, no, I need to go downstairs. And I said, why need to go downstairs? He's like, I got to go to the basement. I said, Jose, you haven't been to the basement. Like, Jose was one of the last folks to get there. He hadn't been to the basement. They had been filming upstairs, not downstairs. He had never been to the basement yet. And I'm like, Jose, I said, I'm sorry, but you're not going to the basement. I said, we're gonna walk outside. And so I took one arm, Rob got the other arm, and we ended up like carrying him outside onto this park bench that was like off of the footprint of the actual Sweet
Right.
Springs building. So again, they're praying over him and everything, and he ends up doubling over and throwing up like this really odd black thing. I don't know how to explain it, and it was disgusting. He threw this thing up a
Mhm.
little bit, and then he sits up and he's like, there he is again. It's Jose. Jose's back. And he's like, how did I get out here? And he had no recollection, none whatsoever, of everything that went on. So he's obviously startled. He doesn't, he's like, I don't know that I'm gonna go back up there. And so we're like, that's fine. Listen, we're gonna take a little bit of a break. We stopped filming for a while.
Right.
Eventually, he's exhausted after this, but he decides that he wants to confront this. And so all of us, every single one of us, goes back upstairs to where this occurred. And for those that know the building, it's like right outside the nurses station on the top floor. I think that's the second floor. And we end up doing this session, and something clear as day comes through that it knew what it was doing. It wanted to attack him because it thought it would be fun. And and so we kind of challenged that, and we're like, hey, this is not okay. This is, we're not here for this. We are here to learn your story, but you can't do this anymore, people. Um, and so, we kind of closed that out. We tried to bring a little bit of closure to it. And then he heads back to the Airbnb and just crashes hard. And he wakes up the next morning and was just still, he barely remembered anything from that night. It was scary. Just from I've never seen somebody impacted so much.
Right.
And just from the health standpoint, like that was scary. Like I don't know how to what do you do when somebody's seizing in front of you? Like that is absolutely terrifying. Um, so that was an experience, and that was my first time filming with the Ghostbusters.
Wow. And Jamie, just for reference for you, that's the episode right after the Haldeman Mansion,
Mhm.
Okay.
which
Okay.
Haldeman Mansion is our team used to manage that years ago.
Yep.
So you missed
Been there
meeting our
a
team.
zillion times. Yep.
Yeah. So
Missed you just by a little bit.
yeah. So
Oh, Angie did mention Randolph County Infirmary was a very cool place too.
okay.
She ended up getting there by herself because we were gonna film and then we had to be postpone it. But Angie was like, "I'm doing this anyways," and that is a creepy place too.
Oh wow. Cool. So we could go on for hours just talking
We
about
could.
this, but let's jump. Why don't we jump into Skinwalker Ranch a little bit, because that's what I know a bunch of people are here to hear about. So
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Skinwalker Ranch. So, first and foremost, I want to tell everybody I have not been there. So, usually I give this presentation in person. I always like to ask everybody, "Hey, how many of you, like, who here has never been to Skinwalker Ranch?" And among all of you, I also raised my hand. I built this out as a research project for a presentation at a place called St. Albans Sanatorium. Um, I love doing research and diving into topics and history and all that. And so, they asked me, "Hey, do you want to challenge? Like you've got all these presentations. Do you want us to challenge you and build something out new and unique?" And I was like, "Sure, let's do it. Like I'm down for a challenge." And so they tossed me Skinwalker Ranch, Angie from Bedford Paranormal, and so I dove in head first. And it's very interesting. So just be aware, I will talk about this subject. I have not been there. I am by no means a hardcore expert. I have some knowledge just from researching, the same as anybody else could here. But I want it. You guys, Jamie, Chad, you guys ask questions. Please feel engaged. Feel free. Everybody in chat, please feel free. I don't like talking at people. I like talking with people. So I am very much so a toss your questions in. Let's derail the hell out of this presentation, because that is the way we learn, right? We all learn
Yeah.
by asking questions and getting involved. So
Yep.
let's do it.
Good deal.
all right, I'm going to throw this up because I like the comment that goes with this. So
Yes. So let me pull up my copy here. So let's start at a road. That is the obvious place to start for Skinwalker Ranch, right? Is a road. Makes perfect sense, right? World-renowned physicist Mikhail Kaku once posed an interesting idea. Let's say that there's a 10-lane superhighway that is built next to an anthill. All right, so hang with me here. We've got a 10-lane superhighway built next to a tiny, tiny, tiny little anthill. Would the ants be aware of the 10-lane superhighway? Do they know what it's used for? Do they know what its purpose is? Do they know how to communicate with the workers who are mere feet away building and constructing this 10-lane superhighway? And no, right? They wouldn't know. The ants wouldn't know how to communicate. They wouldn't know what it is. Would they even be necessarily aware of its presence? Possibly. They might have flighting moments. They know it's a nuisance, right? They might have these fleeting moments where they might see this strange object moving very quickly towards them, and then just as fast as it moved away or moved towards them, it moved away. They might hear these weird sounds and noises that make absolutely no sense, and it is nothing that even remotely sounds natural or normal in their reality, right? But they might still have an idea that there's something there. We just don't know what it is, right?
all right. Mhm.
All right, next slide. So now let's take a little bit of a journey here, and we're going to go to the African continent. Spanish physicist Beatriz Gato Riviera posed a very similar question, right? Could a family of mountain gorillas be aware that they are a protected species inhabiting a natural reserve in the country of Africa, right? Or on the continent of Africa, on the planet Earth? Are they aware of all of these things? Furthermore, are they aware of things like nations, borders, religions, politics, or even their own position in the planetary pecking model? Probably not,
Probably not.
right?
Yeah.
Are they aware of the sheer beauty that maybe surrounds them? Probably not. And even furthermore, has any country could go off base? Yeah, I wouldn't either. Uh, has any country ever sent delegates to go and meet with the gorillas, shake hands, kiss babies, and establish some form of, you know, relationship? No, right? We've gone and we've studied and we've researched. We've taken photos and videos and tried to figure out what they're doing and all that sort of stuff. But we have never gone and said, "Hi, my name's Steve. I want to meet you. I want to meet your leader. Tell me about your society. Tell me about your politics." Right? We have never done that. We've never exchanged signatures. And so, very similar to the ants, right? There is some level of comprehension of the things immediately around them. There's their 3 foot world, if you will. But even though we may have interacted with them, do they understand the intent and the purpose behind that? Probably not.
Right.
And so, before we dive further into this presentation, keep the ants and the gorillas in the back of your minds, everyone. Always remember the ants and the gorillas, because we're going to come back to the ants and the gorillas at the very end of this presentation. All right,
Okay.
let's move on. And so, I always ask again. This is a show of hands because I'm a very interactive person. I always like to ask who here believes in ghosts or spirits. And Chad and Jamie, I'm gonna defer this to you guys.
Yeah.
So okay, so you guys believe. What about aliens?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep, I think-
Sasquatch.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, who believes that I've actually won an argument with my wife?
No, not me.
No, indeed correct. And so the point I want to make here is that we are going to dive into a topic that doesn't just require but demands an open mind to. No one believes that one, Steve. Thank you, Angie. Uh, we're going to dive into a topic that requires, right? It doesn't just require, it demands that we keep an open mind to the limitless possibilities of our own reality, right? What constitutes our very own reality. And so I love this picture because first off, I made it. And second of all, I want you to take all of those neatly categorized boxes, right? Where we've said, okay, we've got ghosts, let's package this up. We've got angels, we've got aliens, we've got cryptoids, we've got UFOs. I need you to take all that, dump it all over the floor. You're gonna make a big old mess with it, but we need to uncategorize everything. We got to take all of the biasness that we have towards understanding what each of these things are, and we're going to throw it all over the floor. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave it there, and we're going to enter a location that exemplifies the term high strangeness. Now, we've already talked about what this presentation and what this podcast is today. So I feel like most of you should be aware that this is an aerial view of a location in Utah. So we could probably move to the next one. We are talking about Skinwalker Ranch today. All right. This is a location, again, that exemplifies high strangeness. By high strangeness, I mean it checks all the boxes in preternatural activity. Now, Skinwalker Ranch has a number of names. When I was going through and doing research, I found it referred to not only as Skinwalker Ranch, but the Sherman Ranch, UFO Ranch, Bigelow Ranch, Nid's Mystery Ranch, Skinwalker Ridge, UFO Hill, Paranormal Ranch, Haunted Ranch, and more. The list goes on and on and on. I just picked the ones that I found the most reference to. This place has many, 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 many names. Reports of preternatural phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch and really the Uinta Basin as a whole span back generations upon generations. All right, it's not just the ranch; it is everything in this basin. All right, a Ute Native American reservation stands close by, and for generations, this whole area has been home to the Ute tribe. All right, so you do have not just you know settlers, but you do have Native Americans that inhabited and know this land. Right
Mhm.
now, the Utes are a tight knit and lip tight tribe. By that, they typically don't share stories to outsiders um, and their experiences. In fact, they typically don't talk about preternatural or paranormal experiences as a whole, because a lot of times the idea behind that is if you talk about it, you are kind of inviting that energy, that experience to occur again.
Right.
And so you don't generally have a whole lot of story sharing around this, because the more you talk about it, the more it's going to occur again, or the more that it's going to come back up. Now, that doesn't mean that not everybody is that in that way or has that same mindset. There are some from the Ute tribe that do claim to have unexplained phenomena dating back over 15 generations. That's a long time. That is a very long time. And the name Skinwalker Ranch doesn't come from the ranch itself. It doesn't come from the Utes itself either, or the Utes tribe. It actually comes from the Navajo and the Mesa above. And so this is where you have the Skinwalker. All right. The name comes from the Navajo tribe. And the Skinwalker, or, and I'm going to murder this, so I apologize, um, also referred to in Navajo, Yi Naldlushi. And by that, it means it actually translates to with it, he goes on all fours. It's basically a malevolent witch, right? Or a witch doctor capable of transforming into a wolf, coyote, bird, bear, or any other type of animal. They use mind control to make their victims come again, right? Don't make me say it again, Thomas. You're gonna have to say it. They use mind control to make their victims harm themselves, as well as others. They can run faster than a car and jump entire mesa cliffs with no effort, one leap.
Wow.
Now, while occasionally allies, the Navajo and the Ute tribes have a much longer history of war. All right, so they've been allies for little bits of time, kind of speckled in with uh, tons of fighting each other and massacring each other. According to many, the Utes believe that because of such a tumultuous history between the two tribes, this led to the Navajo tribe basically putting a curse on the Utes as retribution um, for their perceived aggressions. Basically saying, we're going to curse you, and this curse is in the form of a skinwalker. Now, the Utes don't necessarily believe that a skinwalker lives on the ranch, but that it does walk the ridge directly adjacent to the ranch, right at the top. Exactly. Thank you. That was the Gonzalez Paranormal. And so the name Skinwalker Ranch comes from obviously the Skinwalker, but the ridge that is directly above the ranch itself. All right, so the ranch and portions of the basin nearby are considered off limits to the Ute tribe and natives in the area. They refuse to set foot on that land because it is cursed. It's cursed land. All right, next slide, please.
Yep.
Okay, and so you know the hard part was identifying where to begin with this, with this whole topic, and so I wanted to start first off discussing a little bit about the property and the name, but then kind of following my footsteps of how I researched this topic. And so when I started searching for Skinwalker Ranch, the very first thing that really popped up and was the most prominent were stories from the Sherman family. Um, this is kind of where the story begins, if you will. The Sherman family moved in 1994 onto the property. Um, Terry and Gwen Sherman purchased the land from longtime owners Kenneth and Edith Myers, and just for reference, they lived there for 60 years. The Myers family lived there from 1934 to 1994, so they lived there for 60 years.
Wow.
That's a good chunk of time, right?
Mhm.
However, a majority of the experiences documented originate from the Sherman family, and it is through the Sherman family that this ranch gains international attention. All right. So, claims of the paranormal or the preternatural first surrounding the ranch first appear in 1996 in Salt Lake City in the Utah Deseret News. Later, it appears in the Las Vegas Mercury, but the Utah Deseret News is where this article first breaks. They were presented as a series of articles by investigative journalist George Knapp. Some of you may recognize George Knapp or his name. He is a very fringe journalist, tends to go after topics like Skinwalker Ranch, for example. So you may see and notice him in other kind of like fringe topics in journalism. So George, kind of notices what's going on there. He sees the Shermans kind of writing and sharing some stories about it, and so he decides he wants to get involved. He starts writing these articles himself, and this is where interest starts to pick up. In comes Robert Bigelow. Now, Robert or Bob, I don't know. I've said his name a couple times now, so I feel like maybe Bob and I can be on nickname terms. Owns a hotel chain called the Budget Suites of America. All right, so he's got this whole chain of hotels out in the Midwest, and he's got some money. In 1995, he founded NIDS-SCI, which is the National Institute for Discovery Science. It is not a government organization. Be very clear, it is not a government organization. It is. It did receive funding from the U.S. government, but it itself is not a government organization.
Okay.
Now, NIDS-SCI, basically, it's built to research and advance serious studies of various fringe sciences and paranormal topics. Most notably, you will see Bigelow kind of focus on ufology, so the study of UFOs or UAPs. And so Bigelow ends up, because of the attention that George Knapp puts on Skinwalker Ranch, catches the eye of Bigelow and NIDS-SCI. And in 1996, they purchase the ranch for $200,000. All right. So a little bit more about Bigelow that I usually don't dive too deep into, but he's also the founder of Bigelow Aerospace. In 1998, it was funded by his ownership of the hotel chain, which is the same for Skinwalker Ranch. NIDS-SCI ended up being disbanded in 2004, and Bigelow Aerospace, which which we were talking about, was closed in 2020, March of 2020. Reportedly due to COVID, and they would reopen when conditions permit. They are still not open to this day. So one of the things that Bigelow does, however, is 1996, he purchases a ranch, and they start researching what's going on there. One of the first things he does is he brings on Deputy Administrator of the Investigation, Dr. Colm Keller, and accompanying Dr. Colm Keller is a slew of researchers, as well as one very particular and familiar face, investigative journalist George Knapp. So you've got all of these researchers, you've got Kelleher, and you've also got George Knapp. All right, they are there for quite some time, and in 2005, Dr. Kelleher and George Knapp co-author a book titled "The Hunt for the Skinwalker." It's on my bookshelf somewhere over that way. But basically, this book documents claims from the Sherman family, as well as some of the NIDS-SCI investigations of the property. I will tell you that the vast majority of it is still under lock and key, and you can't get access to it. But a somewhat amount was written about and shared in this book. And so, because of that, yet again, 10-ish years later, you have another peak in interest. People are aware. the Skinwalker Ranch gains more notoriety. Folks are aware of it. Folks are interested again.
Mhm.
Sorry. All right, next slide, please. And so, 2016. 2016, the property is sold to a shell corporation known as Adamantium Holdings. So whomever this is a very big fan of at least Wolverine from the Marvel series. And so 2016, the this unknown shell corporation purchases the building, or excuse me, not the building, the property. Any guesses as to what the asking price was for the property?
Probably more than 200,000.
A little bit more than 200,000. Chad, I think you know that answer, so I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to let you reply. But Jamie, give me a stab.
I'm going to go
Just
with
take
$1 so I don't go over and I can win the showcase.
God, you could. Uh, it's a solid. You'll win.
It's got to be seven, right? Seven figures.
$7. No,
Yep.
$4.5 million.
Wow.
$4.5 million. That is a very steep rise in 10 years. From excuse me, 20 years. From the $200,000 purchase to 4.5 million. But here we are, $4.5 million later, and this unknown corporation now owns Skinwalker Ranch. Immediately, the perimeter of the property is secured with guards, cameras, barbed wire, whole 9 yards. All the roads are blocked. Nobody is getting in on this property without being seen at this point. It is like Area 51, but private property. And so you've got this property sitting there now for a year. 2017, the name Skinwalker Ranch is filed for trademark. It's that trademark is issued in 2018, and a short 2 years later, in 2020, the announcement is made that Brandon Fugel, the Utah real estate tycoon, is the owner of the ranch and obviously Adamantium Holdings. So 4 years, purchase the property, lock it down. 2020, we make an announcement that hey, it's me, I own this. In March of that very same year, so if he announced that in January, we're now a couple months later. In March, a TV show titled The Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch begins airing on the History Channel, which I find very interesting. First off, Brandon had a lot of money. Second of all, he knew how to use a lot of money because he made a very, very popular television show and knew how to build interest and make a very healthy dollar off of it. So I always find that very interesting. I like to throw that out there that this wasn't just something that popped out of the middle of nowhere. This was a very well orchestrated and planned thing to get, you know, basically a television show out of Skinwalker Ranch.
Right.
All right,
And
so
we all know that you can't do that in 3 months.
no, you
Like,
cannot. You cannot film a whole series
Yeah.
in 3 months. That is going to take some serious time, which is exactly what they were doing between 2016 and probably 2018 and 2020, because they probably wouldn't have worked on it until the trademark was already set up. So more than likely, they spent those 2 years filming. All right, so just keep that. Everybody, please be aware of that. That is kind of the timeline of how this happens, and now here we are. We've all hopefully watched some of the show. It is very interesting. And so now let's kind of dive into some of the paranormal side and what really got me interested in further researching this property. Again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to toss them into the comments, and we will take this sideways. But one of the very first things that obviously caught my attention was the paranormal side of Skinwalker Ranch. When Gwen and Terry Sherman first moved onto the property, Gwen immediately starts experiencing paranormal activity. She starts to hear things in the house, in their home. They start to hear voices, footsteps, and more. Objects begin vanishing, reappearing, or sometimes reorienting. One of the common occurrences that was reported by the Sherman family is that picture of the salt and pepper shakers. Reportedly, they would just switch The salt would be in the pepper shaker, and the pepper would be in the salt shaker. And now, granted, that's probably not the best picture because both of those have the same amount of holes at the top, but usually you have less in the salt, right? It's like
Right.
the two holes and whatnot, and then more in the pepper. And so what they would see was the contents of these two objects switch. The salt would be in the pepper shaker, and the pepper would be in the salt shaker, and there'd be no mess. It would be like as if somebody just in a moment's notice switched them. And this happened often, not to the point like, haha, this is a funny joke. Like, yo, whoever's doing this needs to stop. Like, I will fight somebody. That's how often they were experiencing this.
Wow.
And so, they had that. Now, Gwen would also have experiences where she would get home with groceries. She would, bring everything in, set it on the table, put everything away, and then go somewhere else into the house to do something else. Minutes later, she would come back into the kitchen, and all of the groceries that she just put away were back out in the bags that they arrived in.
That
So
had
not
to be
only
frustrating.
Oh god, yeah. Like putting away the groceries one time is a pain in the ass, excuse me. But doing it twice, like who wants to do that? And so so she would have that. Like and I don't know, even as a kid, like young Steve probably would not do that as a prank to my parents because just it's frustrating. Nobody likes to put away groceries. And so she would have that occur. Um, Now, however, the most frequently experienced thing on the property was none other than orbs. They would see orbs of all shapes and sizes and colors, uh, not only within the home itself, but outside of it, over the ranch, over the fields. And while there are many colors that were witnessed, most predominantly they would see the color blue. That was the prevailing color. Right, Angie? Trickster activity. I agree. And they would see these orbs appear over the cattle, in the fields, trees, directly outside of the house, everywhere that you can imagine. One of the most prominent experiences that I researched during this whole case was of the Sherman family and their pet dogs. Late one night, the three of the Sherman's dogs saw one of the blue orbs approaching the house. So snarling, they end up chasing after the orbs into a thicket. All right, they make a loud yelping sound and then dead silence. Um, and so Terry, fearful of leaving his house at this point, right? Um, calls out for his dogs for hours. He ends up falling asleep on his front porch because he's standing there trying to call out for his dogs, trying to get them to come home. In the morning, he makes his way towards the thicket. It's daytime; he can finally see. And just just inside of the thicket, there is a new clearing, and in that clearing, he finds three charred masses. And that is not the only time that they have found the remnants of animals that somehow instantaneously caught on fire and charred at the same moment. But that was the first time that they experienced that, and that was how those three dogs went.
Wow.
And so that kind of plays into a little bit the next thing that caught my attention. Could be UFO, Angie. Um, Cattle mutilations or mutilations in general. Cattle mutilations have been around for quite some time. The earliest known documented outbreak of unexpected livestock death actually occurred in 1606 in London and the surrounding shires. So this is not like original to the U.S. This is not like we made this up. Like no, other people in other parts of the world have experienced mutilations on a massive scale. In 1606 in London, the report states that whole slaughters of sheep occurred, in some places up to 100 sheep. Nothing was taken from the sheep except for their tallow and some innard parts. That's it. The carcass, the fleece, all of that remained. All of the things that you would probably try to sell to make profit remained. The only thing that didn't was tallow and some of the innard parts. Um, as most of the Midwest, Utah was no stranger to this phenomenon. In the 1970s, a wave of ranchers began finding their cattle mutilated in the fields, including right here in the Uinta Basin, which, complete side note, was one of the many catalysts of the Sagebrush Rebellion. Um, Throughout that time, the Shermans and Nids, when they owned the ranch, a number of cattle mutilations were reported. In one instance, the mutilation occurred in broad daylight, only a few hundred yards away from the family. They brought in this new calf. Terry tagged the calf approximately 40 minutes or so before. Uh, and so they tag the calf, set him out into the pasture, walk away. Uh, about 40 minutes pass, and his dogs start snarling towards the field. And so Terry went out to check on the cattle. What he finds is that calf that he was just with 40 minutes prior had been strewn out in the field, each leg resting 10 feet away from the torso. Not a drop of blood was found, and the only markings on the cow were on the ear that was tagged, had been removed cleanly as if by a sharp instrument. No blood. No blood whatsoever. Now, this was a common occurrence throughout the ranch. Time and time again, they would stumble upon cattle that had been mutilated and missing body parts, mainly the eyes, ears, and occasionally other parts of the cow. But there would consistently never be any blood found. Interestingly enough, oftentimes immediately prior or after this event, bright blue orbs would be seen floating throughout the ranch.
Wow, I think Tom hits it on the head there. Mind blowing. Like, I,
Well, it's interesting, right? Because I asked everybody to toss all of their preternatural packaging on the floor before we get into this topic, because I would guarantee you the majority of us, when we think of orbs, we think of ghosts or dust or whatever debris in the air, right?
I got a dust on that one, but yeah.
Exactly. But the idea is when we talk about orbs, we typically talk about it in the sense of the paranormal. And there are people all over the spectrum on this, right? Some people are like, yes, ghosts are people, or orbs are people, orbs are ghosts. And then like Jamie, like you said, there are people like myself that I'm like, yeah, it's probably dust, it's probably, mold, mildew, something floating in the air.
Moisture in the air. There's a lot of things.
Exactly.
Right?
But the interesting thing to me that made me and like Tyler said, it's insane. What made me take a step back and really say there's something else here is the fact that not only do we have orbs in the paranormal, but now we're seeing orbs in cattle mutilations. Like that is interesting to me. Like,
right.
I think of orbs, I'm like ghosts. I'm thinking paranormal, and I put it in the ghost box. But now I've just been told that no, we can't just keep orbs in the ghost box. Now we got to toss it over here in this cattle mutilation box and whatever the heck is going on. Because when we think of cattle mutilations, next slide.
Nope, sorry.
Nope, you are fine. We think of things like, I don't know, aliens, right? A lot of people, when you say cattle mutilations, we go straight to aliens. And so another phenomena that was predominantly seen, not only on the ranch, but in the basin in its entirety, are UAPs or UFOs, right? It seems like the Sherman Ranch has seen it all, from orange balls, blue spheres, disappearing fog, round flat aircraft with humanesque figures emerging from it, aerial light anomalies, and more. But again, out of everything, it seems like these orbs of just tons of different shapes and sizes and colors were the most prolific thing. Now, even neighbors of the ranch report seeing UFOs, including a neighbor that came forward and stated that he too saw a UFO somewhere between 30 to 40 feet in diameter, floating pretty much just directly above them, heading towards the ranch. So this is not just, you can only look up in the sky on the ranch and see a UFO or UAP. These are people that are living in this entire area, in this entire basin, experiencing unidentifiable, unknown flying objects. Granted, there is, I believe, a military installation close by, and so some of that probably does account for that, right? It's for testing.
Right.
And because it's the military and safety of folks, we can't always know the latest and greatest technology. We weren't aware of the internet for a number of years before it finally made it to general public consumption, amongst many other technology advancements. However, like Angie said, uh, too many to be a coincidence, and many of them almost textbook examples of UFOs and UAPs that other people have seen, not only here but in other parts and other countries all across the globe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, talking about these orange balls or spheres or whatnot, one of the things that really, really, really caught my attention is something that I start off by calling the window. Are we okay on time?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
know if we had like we got to be done in 5 minutes because I could like totally try to like
No, I mean we're
cool.
we can hang out for a while. So
We're here for the long run. Everybody, go and get your drink, refill some water, whatever.
It's time to get some snacks. Let's go.
Get some snacks, pop some popcorn, bio breaks. But one of the most interesting things to me, like hands down, grabbed my interest, and I was like, I'm sold. I need to know more about this. Is what was referred to originally as the window. It was first reported by the Shermans, and they would frequently report seeing this large orange hole appear in the sky. All right. And so Terry would I like it, Angie. Terry would report seeing this orange hole just appear in the sky. And from his vantage point at the homestead, this hole was two-dimensional, right? He would see some width and some height. And inside of that window, how's it going, Jerry? Thanks for stopping by, man. We appreciate it. Um, inside of this window, he would frequently see what he could only explain as another world. Blue skies set against the dark contrast of the night. So, he's basically sitting there. It's dark. It's night out. He's hanging out on his front porch, and all of a sudden he sees this orange window appear, circular window appear in the sky. And it's daylight. It's daylight there. Wherever there is, it is daylight. He would witness objects and things passing by on like as if on the other side of this window. But on very rare occasion, he would witness objects, predominantly creatures, appear to cross through the window. So not just on one side safely, as if you were, you know, at an aquarium looking at fish on the other side and they can't come through. But
Right.
on occasion, he would watch something crawl out from this window and into our reality, into our world.
Interesting. I'm getting chills.
And so, next slide, please. We changed this from the window to the tunnel.
Yeah.
On August 25th, 1997, the NIDS team reportedly encountered something very, very similar. At 2:30 a.m., a dull, small orange glow appeared above the ground on the ranch. It was very small, about 6 inches in diameter, but it began to grow brighter and brighter, larger and larger. One of the scientists witnessing this phenomena was actually sitting up on the mesa above, and he had a pair of grade 3 binoculars with night vision. Now, grade 3 binoculars are very, very expensive binoculars used predominantly by like the military and government. Very expensive, very, very high tech. If anybody wants to gift me some, I'll love you long time. But they're great. And so this scientist is looking down over the ranch, and they call up. They say, "Hey, we see this orange light appearing. Can you take a look at it? From the mesa. What does it look like from the mesa?" And so while the scientists on the ground on the ranch itself just see what appears to be this flat, this window, this two-dimensional window appearing, the scientists with the binoculars realize that what they're looking at is not a window, but a hole. And not really a hole, but a tunnel. It was cylindrical on the sides, and it started to span further back as it grew wider and wider. To the naked eye, this was nothing more than a hole or tear, right? But under infrared, this was a tunnel. And not only did the tunnel appear, not only did they witness it grow and then close, but they also watched a creature climb out of it and creep into the dark of the ranch. Creepy, right? Next slide, please. And so this brings us to our next kind of topic of what's going on in this ranch: cryptids. Cryptids of all shapes and sizes and sorts have been spotted not only on Skinwalker Ranch, but the Uinta Basin as a whole. One of the very first, yes, Angie, we're gonna get there. Don't give away spoilers. One of the very first creatures reported by the Sherman family is a wolf, and not just any ordinary wolf. This wolf stood about 5 feet tall on all fours, so roughly slightly shorter than me. Um, but this wolf stood on was 5 feet tall on all fours, gray hair, blue-eyed wolf. The Sherman family uh, pulls up to the ranch one of the very first times that they're at the ranch, and this wolf casually makes its way over to the family. Reportedly, from 10 feet away, Terry could smell the scent of rain on the dog's pelt as it continued to trot up to the family. A feeling of ease and peace filled the air and washed over the family as the family slowly gathers to pet the wolf. I don't know about you guys, but I would be hightailing it to get inside the damn car. Like the last thing that I would do is be like, "Oh, wild wolf, let me go pet it." But for whatever reason, something so moved and so not even inspired, but maybe drove the family to feel a sense of ease and peace around this beast that they were inclined to go and pet it and to gather around it, right? Like that is scary. Like,
Yeah.
from an enemy, like something that could just tear you apart in seconds. That is an interesting trait to be able to do, is to make everybody around you feel perfectly fine. And so they're petting this wolf, and they continue that for a couple minutes. Crazy, right? I wouldn't pet a 3 foot. No, right? Exactly. I wouldn't let
I like it.
you
We're
pet a
putting
3 foot wolf.
we're putting sizes of what we would do though. Like, maybe a 2 foot is okay.
Yeah, maybe like a 1.5 foot wolf. Probably okay. 5 foot. No, hell no. 3 foot. That's pushing it, man.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
like,
jeez.
1 foot, 2 foot wolf, maybe. Um, so so they're petting this wolf, this 5 foot wolf. So I think we all agree that the 5 footer is way out of the realm of let's pet this. And so, right, Thomas, come here, buddy. And so they're petting this very unsafe creature, and in a swift motion, the wolf takes one bound, one jump away from the family to the closest corral. Mind you, the closest corral is 70 feet away. 70 feet, one jump, pretty significant. And inside, the family had just brought in and released its first group of cattle. While most of the cows were able to get away and they realized the danger, one of the calves was not so lucky, and the wolf caught it by its neck through the metal fence. The 300-pound calf cried out as the wolf attempted to pull it through the bars. Terry quickly reacts, comes out of his stupor, and the hey, it's safe to pet a wolf, and he gets into his car. He grabs his Magnum and immediately shoots. So was Michael Jordan. Yes, Michael Jordan in disguise. Um, also a Skinwalker. It's all the same. It's all Michael Jordan. Uh, he grabs his Magnum. He shoots the wolf in the ribs. Wolf could care less. It does not bother. It does not wince. It continues its attack. Two more shots ring out, and the wolf finally lets go of the calf and stares directly at Terry. Now, I don't know if Terry was wearing his brown pants that day, but he probably was after.
Uh-huh.
And so Terry takes out another shot. Another shot rings out. This time, right to where the beast's heart should be. The animal continues to take no notice and stares at Terry. Finally, it begins to back off. It moves away about 30 feet, showing no sign of distress. It is literally trotting away. It's not running. It is hanging out, having a good time, trotting away from the family. Terry realizes at this point that this is a problem. They need to put this animal down before it decimates their entire herd of cattle. And so he grabs his 30-06, puts another bullet into the animal. From only 40 feet away, it hits the animal dead on. That is a powerful gun. Still, it stands. It was my ex-husband, Jesus. Still, it stands. No notice of the bullets or wounds that it has taken. Another shot, this time through the chest cavity. Finally, a piece of hair detaches from the animal and drops to the ground. That's it. No blood, piece of hair. Nothing has put this animal down or hurt it. Finally, the animal continues to turn away and trot away. Terry and his son give chase, but to no avail. They track the footprints for a period of time, and the prints abruptly stop. As in, they were following footsteps of this animal until there were no more footsteps. It disappeared in thin air. There were no signs of blood, no signs of blood on the tracks, no signs of blood on the hair that apparently fell from the animal. Nothing. This is just one of many cryptid experiences, not only on, but around the ranch. And sightings of creatures coming and going through the tunnel was somewhat frequent. Sometimes they would see the creatures moving around the ranch. Sometimes they would hear or see the effects of the creatures, but not the creatures themselves. In one particular instance, so if you guys are familiar with the ranch, there is a creek bed that runs through the ranch, and it's got a little bit of water, not a whole lot, but a little bit. And so reportedly, the Shermans watched as something ran through the creek bed on the property, watching the splashes of water arc into the air, but no creature visible. Nothing actually making those splashes. Another interesting creature that I threw in here because I found it vastly interesting. Actually lives on the northern side of the property, so not on Skinwalker Ranch, but in a property, a body of water known as Bottle Hollow Reservoir. It takes the name in the late 1800s as soldiers returning from war. They'd head out, grab something to drink at the local bar, and on their way back home, they would pass by this reservoir and toss their empty whiskey bottles or beer bottles into the reservoir, into the ravine. In the 1970s, for some reason, we thought, what would be a really good idea? All that broken glass area, let's fill it with water. And so I don't understand. Like, I hope they cleaned it out. Because if not, and somebody decides to go and touch the bottom, it's just gonna be broken glass. But in the 1970s, they fill in this ravine. It becomes the Bottle Hollow Reservoir, and ever since then, reports of a giant snake-like creature permeate the community. You see this giant snake swimming around in the reservoir, sometimes coming out and then slinking back in. But I include this because, we're talking about Skinwalker Ranch, but for whatever reason, the activity is not just. It's not like, okay, we've got this area to work with. We can only do crazy stuff here. No, it's the entire basin. There's stuff going on everywhere here. So be aware of Bottle Hollow Reservoir. Would not recommend swimming in it. And if you do, wear some shoes that you can't get glass in your feet. So that brings me to the big question. Why? Why is all of this occurring at or around Skinwalker Ranch? Why is all this high strangeness occurring in one location, seemingly in the middle of nowhere, right? A lot of times when we go out and we investigate, and Chad, Jamie, you guys have probably seen it. I know, Chad, you're going on an investigation coming up here. You go out on an investigation and you are looking for one of these things. Not all of them. You're looking for one of them, right? You're like, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to investigate ghosts. Or maybe you're my friend Stacy and Andy, and you're like, hey, you want to go hunt Sasquatch? And I'm like, I don't want to hunt Sasquatch because I don't have a bag big enough to bring him back. I just want to observe the Sasquatch. So I call it a Squatch watch. It may have been in Gettysburg, but I call it a Squatch watch because I'm not hunting. I'm not trying to catch the Squatch. I just want to watch the Squatch. Yeah. The government does do some weird stuff, Jerry. So why is this happening all seemingly in the middle of nowhere? first and foremost, I want you to be aware that the middle of nowhere is a perpetuated myth around Skinwalker Ranch. Um, in reality, there's around 63,000 people living within a 30-mile radius of the ranch, and a number of nearby towns. That's a lot, by the way. That is a healthy, very healthy amount of people. That is not middle of nowhere status. All right, very much so not middle of nowhere status. Um, in comparison, there's a county nearby here to me that is fairly well populated, and they have about 93,000 people. Um, in the same space. So actually in a bigger space, 389 square miles. So they have more people in a larger space. So this is a lot of people. Just be aware of that. There's also somewhere close to 400 drilling rigs immediately south of the property, which report wirelessly back to a tower situated directly north of the ranch. All right. So first off, that is a lot of signal going over a small space. But have you guys watched any of the shows?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you once ever noticed a drilling rig?
Nope.
Have you once ever noticed a massive, absolutely massive tower that is just north of the property?
Of course not.
Nope.
Interesting, right? And so a lot of effort is made to not show those things.
So I've left it. I gotta show this. Here's how cryptids are made. Thanks, Jerry.
It's like instead of going to Florida and hopping into the what is it, the fountain of youth.
Yeah.
You head to Utah and you head to the fountain of cryptids. And either you turn into a cryptid or you just get the hell cut up of your feet and you die of like some flesh-eating bacteria in the water. You got two options here, folks.
Yeah.
Either you turn into a cryptid or you die from flesh-eating bacteria.
It's 50-50, you know.
Worth a shot. Who knows? Could be fun. Could be fun. But it is not in the middle of nowhere, right? There are people around. There are people that, and I'm not saying this like, let's debunk all of this stuff. I just want everyone to be aware that that's where my ex-mother-in-law swam. I want folks to be aware that it's not in the middle of nowhere. There are things out there. There are people out there. There are towns out there. And I'm not saying that they're not experiencing things, but it's not in the middle of nowhere. All right.
Right.
So let's talk about why some of these things could be, why some of these things are being experienced. First off, obviously the first and foremost, is it a hoax? Has everything all been made up? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
good way to increase the price of a ranch, that's for damn sure, right? 200,000 to 4.5 million. That is a healthy amount of money. I would be very pleased with $4.5 million.
But it seems like a lot of things have happened. Like there just seems like a lot for it to be a hoax.
Yes, and so that is one of the biggest kind of X's against a hoax is the fact that activity has been reported for decades, for generations, 15 generations. If you talk to the Ute tribe, that is a very long time. So the idea that it could be entirely a hoax, I feel like you kind of got to throw that one out the window. Now, could some of it be?
I got to share this, and there's something here that is. Well, I agree with you on the hoax is a challenge, but there is the concept of an embellishment.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's like whisper down the lane, right?
Yes.
Something starts here and it ends there, and it's uniquely different in the character and content that it started at.
Exactly.
And with premise to this is a lot of oral history, not a lot of documentation, especially in the aged history. It's somebody telling a story to somebody who's telling a story to somebody.
Yep.
So some of this may not be as it was, but what we're taking at face value.
Yep. It's like your cousin's brother's friend saw a squirrel, and then all of a sudden it's Sasquatch, right?
Right.
And that's why I say, like, it's highly unlikely that all of this is a hoax. Now, is it taken out of proportion? Sure, there could definitely be. Like you said, Could it be embellished? 100%. That's exactly how the human brain works, right? Which
Mhm.
complete side note, by the way, but every time the human brain remembers a memory, you actually rewrite your memory with what you just remembered. So the more times you remember an experience, the less it is real, and now it is a memory of a memory. I don't know why, but that is wildly interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that also goes with the fact that this thing, this thing is now grown because you've rewritten it so many times that it's no longer just this tiny little experience. Now it's just crazy. There's things happening
Right.
everywhere, right? And so could it be? Maybe, possibly. But I think it doesn't discount the fact that folks are still having experiences, especially to this day on the property.
Mhm.
So could some of it be a hoax? Maybe. Maybe. Some of it could be made up. Some of it could be television, right? Because if a TV show is not entertaining, who's going to watch it?
Yep.
What is
Right.
that? No offense, anybody, but season 3 of the Ghost Hunters uh, was very dry because there wasn't a whole lot. Like they'd go out to investigate, and sometimes they wouldn't find anything. And granted, that is very real. That
Yeah.
is reality. That is exactly what we see when we investigate. You could go to the most active location some nights and get nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
However, that's not entertaining.
Doesn't make good TV. No.
It doesn't make good TV at all, does it? So, could some of this be from an entertainment perspective? Yes, without a doubt, yes. But let's dive even further. Could it be delusions? There are such things as folia do, paraphrenia. Season 3 was dry because of Rob's the ghost hunters, not the ghost finders, Angie. So could it be a delusion, right? Shared psychosis, a shared delusional disorder, right? Again, kind of like folia do, paraphrenia. You have such things as what is it? I can't remember the year it was, but do you remember that whole historical account of this whole uh, town of folks that once started dancing and they couldn't stop, and then the next person, and the next person, and then the whole town was dancing, and then people ended up dying because they couldn't stop dancing, right? Uh, what it came down to was folia do. It was just this one thing that started to be shared against other people. Um, it wasn't anything necessarily paranormal. It was just this shared psychosis.
Yeah.
Um,
The dancing plague of 1518.
there you go. Thank you. And so again, maybe it's folia do, maybe it's paraphrenia, but it again seems unlikely because we look back at the sheer amount of history of stories over generation after generation, of the Ute tribe, people living there, and not no longer just oral history, like you said, dictated from person to person, but now written down and shared. You know,
Mhm.
I don't I don't know the Shermans. I've never met them. I think it's interesting that they only lived there for 2 years, but I'm not sure that at the start the whole plan was to go straight paranormal with it. Like I feel like, especially in 1996, this was very very taboo, and you were a crazy person if you talked about this
Yeah.
stuff, right? You weren't like on television.
Right.
You were on television because you went to an insane asylum.
Right.
So
And is that maybe the reason that we don't have reports from the family who owned it before the Shermans? I mean,
possibly, it's very possible. I mean, like I said, they lived there for 60 years, and I have seen nothing account wise. Now, again, could it be because of that like shunning? Yeah, yeah, for
mm,
sure. I mean, consider their neighbors, right? Their neighbors would tell them, hey, you talk about this stuff, it's gonna come and
yeah,
bite you in the tail.
right.
Um,
When it comes back to the way your dad was, like he didn't believe it, you
yep.
know?
Yep.
So
There's a generational toughness there, you know,
it is
that just
very
says,
much so.
nope, not going to believe it. Don't want to believe it. Doesn't happen. Head the
Exactly.
sand moments, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I can
Exactly.
see that.
So that could be it, right? That doesn't mean they haven't had experiences. They just didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so I think the idea of it being a delusion, again, interesting. I'm not sure it fits the bill. Um, we could go into nature, right? Could it be tectonic strain theory? The idea that, or TST for short, by the way, that maybe there is a geographical and temporal relationship between tectonic or seismic stress. right? We know that there is a fault line fairly close to the Uinta Basin. It's actually on the other side of Salt Lake City, known as the Wasatch or Wasatch. I don't know how to pronounce it. Wasatch Fault Line. I'm going to say Wasatch because it sounds cool.
Sounds good. Yeah.
I like it. And so that is directly located right on the other side of Salt Lake City. The interesting thing, though, is if we were to say that it was something like tectonic strain theory, or even something like ball lightning, right, where we've heard of earthquake lights, where you have some sort of seismic stress or buildup, and then there's a release of energy that causes this ball lightning, right? We know it's a thing, and we know that through the release of some of this energy that it can actually interact with the human brain via VLF or ULF radiation. Again, however, I want to throw out that if this was occurring, why are we hearing so many experiences further away in just this one area, the Uinta Basin, and not in, I don't know, a massive city nearby known as Salt Lake City, right? Like, I have
Mhm.
friends that live in Salt Lake City that are also paranormal investigators, and yeah, they have activity, but it's not this. They're not finding mutilated dogs and cats in the streets, right? Like,
Right.
they are just not. This is something that is out here to this particular place. Another theory, and very strong theory, by the way, is the military testing of advanced military equipment on
Mhm.
civilians in remote parts of the country. One reason behind this is constant humming that folks have reportedly heard emanating from the underground. Again, I feel like, and this can be very much challenged, by the way, because it's the government, so anything goes here. But I feel like if they wanted to do testing on that grounds, on that land, why don't they just eminent domain it and be like, this is ours now? Because we do that. That's how we got this country, by the way. And so, like, why would they? We know that there is civilian testing. It's happened. It's happened in the past, sure,
Mhm.
but it's never happened in this long of a time period that we're aware of, at least, and this never as in depth. So I would argue that if the military wanted the ground or wanted this land, if there is a military base or installation in the basin, because a lot of people will throw that out there, or they'll say it's underneath of the property itself. Why don't they just buy the property then?
Right.
Like like if it's that big of a deal, you just buy the property and whatever. Say it's a dumping ground and nobody's gonna care. Nobody's gonna ever go there. So I feel like those very basic kind of high level reasons as to what could go on, a lot of them to me get thrown out, which leaves us a little bit of the wilder of ideas. Um, so we're going to cover each of these, but first and foremost, obviously, the name itself, Native American Skinwalkers. So again, these are rabbit hole theories. We could sit here and talk for days on these. We're going to cover them lightly. If you guys have questions, let's talk about it. But I don't want to keep us
Mhm.
here till the cows come home, or don't. So, so Skinwalkers. Go ahead, the next slide. Sorry. The first, obviously, is the name of the ranch itself. The Utes believe that the land was cursed due to the numerous native encounters and experiences that they had with the Navajo tribe. And it was theorized that a skinwalker could have been employed to harass the Utes. Seems plausible at first. However, a skinwalker, just like I can't remember the name of the paranormal team that was in here before, but like they had mentioned, a skinwalker is a very real thing to these tribes, to these people, right? Just like ghosts are to most of us, or the idea of ghosts, right?
Mhm.
A skinwalker is a very real thing, right? It is real. It is tangible. It is something that can be experienced.
Right.
And a skinwalker is essentially a medicine man gone rogue. Somebody that performs these twisted ceremonies and manipulates magic for evil purposes and intents. The Navajo tribes see these folks as chaotically evil. They are more likely to persecute and kill a skinwalker when they see one not ally with them, right? Because it is like trying to build an alliance with the Joker, right? You're not sure if he is going to screw you over or help you, and
Right.
more likely than not, probably just mess with you, right? So it is very unlikely that this is a skinwalker or a curse in the form of a skinwalker from the Navajo tribe. They wouldn't. It is not in them to typically work with a skinwalker. Again, this is chaotic evil. This is something that doesn't care who you are. It is going to try to do the worst that it can, no matter what.
Hmm.
So maybe, who knows?
Right.
The next is the idea of human consciousness, right? Could the connection that we as humans have with our environment around us be causing this phenomena? On one particular afternoon, Gwen and Terry were driving through the ranch and passed their bull enclosure. Gwen commented, "I would go out of my mind if I lost any of these animals." Terry agreed and they drove on. 45 minutes later, they're returning past that very same enclosure, and the bulls are now nowhere to be found. Absolutely gone.
Hmm.
Nowhere. Frantically, they search around the enclosure. No signs of the animal. Nothing showing that they broke out or anything like that. And as a last resort, Terry decides to walk over and examine this small white trailer that had been parked on the far side of the enclosure for years. It had been sitting there rusting away. As he peeks inside, he freezes. He sees all four 2,000-pound bulls crammed into this small white trailer. All four are completely frozen and staring forward. They are not moving. Terry attempts to open the trailer with no luck. Hold on one second. Just one. That's weird. Normally it's like three.
Yeah.
So he tries to open the trailer.
Hmm.
No luck. As the last resort, he decides to bang on the doors. And that arises the bulls. They awake from their stupor and they begin going berserk inside the trailer. Within seconds, the metal door is kicked open and the bulls stampede out. So what's interesting about that is how coincidental is it that just 45 minutes prior, they were having that very same conversation of how terrifying it would be to lose those bulls.
Right.
But they were inside of a truck moving down the road, driving past the pasture. They weren't standing outside. They weren't standing in the field. They weren't standing somewhere that, unless you had some sort of technology or the truck was bugged, that you would hear that conversation, right? And
Hmm.
so it's interesting because it seems like whatever is at the ranch in this sense not only can hear conversations in remote portions of the ranch, but also react to them and manipulate the emotions and thoughts of those people at the ranch, right? They made them feel that a 5 foot, which we've all agreed is an unsafe wolf to pet, uh, they've made the family feel like a 5 foot wolf is safe to pet. They've also not manipulated these animals to get into a small trailer based off of a conversation that happened 45
Right.
minutes prior.
And not it's four bulls into a small trailer. And I don't know if you've ever had to deal with livestock, but moving livestock like that, that doesn't go smoothly.
No, not at all.
No.
Nothing goes to plan.
Mm.
So, you know, that is an interesting thing. So, could it be that the inhabitants of the ranch are creating the phenomena themselves in a poltergeist fashion? We've heard of this. You know, we have seen. I can't remember the name because I'm so great at memory, but there is a study that it could be, yeah, psychological motivation for sure. There was a study that this group of scientists wanted to see if they could create poltergeist activity, and so Chad, hopefully you've heard of this. You shook your head for a second. Maybe not, but
Yeah, I've heard of it. I can't think of it either.
they basically took this sterile environment, this room, and they started, calling it, I can't remember, it was like Bob or something like that. But they started referring to this entity in the room, and they started talking about it as if this was something that they had experienced. Giving the breath of life into something, and they talk about it, share stories about this entity, and eventually they started having experiences in this room by an entity named the one that they came up with. It was completely created by the folks that were part of that study. While you Google, let me know in a second once you find it.
Yeah.
Um, but going back to the ranch, over the years, remote viewers, shamans, and more have attempted to examine the ranch, and all report back the feeling of dread. In fact, in multiple reports, meditating at the ranch seems to cause a spike in activity after the meditation is performed.
Hmm.
Again, while this is a plausible, you know, answer, it also could be fairly unlikely because activity appears to occur on the ranch with or without human interaction. Um, it could play a part of it, just like all of this could play a part. But in and of itself, activity has occurred on this ranch without people or humans being present. So it doesn't necessarily require human presence for things to kick off.
I can't find the name of it, but yeah, there's
We'll
definitely
find it.
case studies of it. Yeah,
I can't remember it off the top of my head, but
but I think Bob is the name that they came up with. To be honest with you.
so yeah, it was something like that. It was very basic.
Yeah.
As soon as we end, we'll remember it. Don't worry. And so to me, the next two explanations are some of the most interesting. Um, and this is where I love this. I love talking about this idea, and we can go on for forever. But you and I, us, all of us, even you at home, chat, um, we live in a four-dimensional reality, four-dimensional world, right? Three spatial dimensions: height, width, and depth, and one temporal dimension or vector, time, right? Um, but what if there were more, right? What if there were more dimensions? I'm not talking about Marvel Cinematic Universe where Doctor Strange opened up as a portal and we walk into another universe. I'm not talking about you know Loki seasons 1 or 2, which is a great show by the way. Um, but dimensions that we can't comprehend, right? So here we are. We're towards the end of our presentation, and I want you to think back to the very beginning. Think back to our ants that are living next to a 10-lane superhighway. They are they are incapable of comprehending something so complex, right? Our ants cannot nerd. Thank you. Oh, Philip experiment. Yeah, it's Philip. Did you find that, Jamie?
No, that's Chad. That's all. The
Oh, it's
nerd
Chad.
applied appropriately to this one. So
Okay. Good. It's Philip. It's the Philip experiment. Anybody, if you're interested, you guys ought to look up the Philip experiment.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Rebecca says not sponsored by Disney Plus. You are 100% correct. But if Disney Plus, if you want to sponsor the show, or me, or all three of us, please feel free. So what if there are more, right? What if in this scenario we are the ants? We are incapable of comprehending or understanding something so complex, so outside of our scope of reality that here we are, right? Maybe we catch glimpses, but that's just it and nothing more. Um, you guys have you guys heard of string theory?
Mhm.
Okay. So string theory, proposes the idea that the fundamental constituents of our universe are created by one-dimensional strings rather than particles. And so what we perceive as particles are actually vibrations in loops of strings. Now, one of the most popular, uh, popularly accepted string theories suggest, and I'm not promoting or dissuading string theory, I'm just stating this, by the way, is that our universe does not consist of four dimensions, but of 10, 11, 21, 24, up to 26. 26 dimensions. Can you guys comprehend a hypercube, a four-dimensional cube? No,
Barely. No.
I can't. Like
Yeah.
there are computers that will draw the renditions, and it's basically a cube where each side is another cube. think it has 26 sides, something crazy like that. But it's something that, while we can begin to imagine it, we can't comprehend it. I can't just sit down and be like, oh look, there's a hypercube. I can see a cube, I can see all
Right.
of its sides, but I sure as hell can't even begin to understand a hypercube. And so that is just one dimension, by the way. That is something that's not three-dimensional, because as four-dimensional creatures, we experience the world and our reality in three dimensions. Hi, John Covey, how are you, man? Um, we experience the world in three dimensions, right? Even though we know that we are four-dimensional creatures, because time is a vector, we experience time. Um, I actually had this conversation earlier today at work, which is fun. But we experience time as a vector, but it's not really a dimension in the sense that we can move forward and backwards. So we experience the world as three-dimensional creatures, in three dimensions, or three dimensions, but we're four-dimensional creatures. Sorry if I'm losing everybody here, but the idea is we are incapable of comprehending anything above three dimensions.
Right.
We just can't. And so, like, how do you begin to imagine something? Wow, you are still awake. God bless America. Hi, buddy. Um, and you have no pants on. That's even better. So how do
The
you,
joys of youth, right there.
right? You got to stay off screen, big man. You challenged me to get your episode canned, get the show canned. This is the way to do it. Yes, buddy. Nope. Go that way. Hold on, I'll be there in a couple minutes, big man. Um, that was close right there. You guys almost had a butt. Um,
This is why
Sure.
Chad doesn't stand up during our podcast. Too,
yeah,
so.
Jamie,
Hey, hey.
So, we can't comprehend something we haven't remotely experienced, right?
right,
Right.
exactly.
Like, you just can't. So, we start to unravel and consider these ideas that there are these dimensions that I'm not talking about Marvel Cinematic Universe dimensions, but dimensions that could potentially be there, and
Mhm.
something that we're interacting with, but we can't comprehend. Therefore, we don't know what they are.
Yeah.
One idea here is that we're possibly experiencing something called parallel universes, or a multiverse, right? And that is the idea that there are multiple universes, and we don't know how they're stacked. They could be a big old jar of marbles in that sense.
Mhm.
But the idea that they're directly beside our own. And this is a facet of astronomical theory of the multiverse. Is it possible, through the vantage point of quantum mechanics? Hopefully, everybody knows what quantum mechanics are. That our universe, or multiverse, is composed of quantum superposition. That is the idea and phenomena that chunks of matter can occupy two spaces or two places at the same time. This is true, by the way. Quantum mechanics is a thing. This is correct. Um, there are the tiniest of particles that have been observed to be in two places at the same time. There are quantum computers. IBM has one. And so we know that these very small particles can be in two places in space at the same time. Which,
Right.
to me, we're talking about mind blowing from earlier. That is mind blowing to me, right?
Mhm.
That is like butterfly effect right there. And so experiments on this are still underway, and they're taking larger and larger and larger particles and objects, right? So we're not talking about like Star Trek, you know, transporting folks from a spaceship down onto a planet, but we are talking about objects being in two places at the same time.
Right.
Nutty. Um, and
Well,
so
there's also the theory that everything that has existed or will exist exists at the same time, which that could be an explanation of this as well. So
sure, I mean, if you look at time as a dimension and not a vector, you're 100%,
Yeah.
right? Because and that's why I always like to point out that time is a vector, because we only experience time in one direction, forward, right?
Mhm.
But what if you take the next step above that, right? Just like if you were to draw a stick figure on a piece of paper, right? That stick figure's existence, let's say you gave it sentience, it is aware of its constraints on its little 8 by 6 piece of paper, right?
Mhm.
However, we living in a higher dimensional awareness are aware that, hey, you know what? There's a backside of that paper. Mind blown, right? There's a whole other side that you can't even access. You can't see it. And guess what? There are other pieces of paper too. You are one of trillions of pieces of paper. And so,
Right.
you know, we're just incapable of comprehending what we can't see or know or feel, right? So who's to say that there aren't things that are able to say, you know what? I see all of time. And time to me is a dimension, meaning I can pick up this phone and this phone is Steve. And Steve doesn't live or die. Steve just exists here. I can look at every side of Steve, right? I can
Mm.
pick him up, I can put him down, I can put him on the shelf, I can pick him up a little bit later. Um, but my understanding of Steve I'm over here. Starts at one point and then ends here. And that's how I experience Steve, right? So and I don't know. That's always been wildly interesting. So we have this idea, right, that there is just dimensional awareness that we just don't get.
Right.
And is it possible that the experiences, again, at Skinwalker Ranch, are tied in such a way that we are catching glimpses of something, but nothing more? Again, are we the ants or the gorillas in this scenario? Quite possibly.
Okay.
I mean, look back a couple thousands years ago, we were sacrificing babies to make sure that the sun rose in the morning,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Like we were like, you know what? We got to make sure that sun comes up tomorrow. We got to kill a kid. And so like people did this for hundreds of thousands of years. And then eventually they were like, "Oh my god, we didn't kill any kids last night and the sun came up." Holy crap.
Yeah.
And like I mean it's horrible to joke about, but the sentiment of we don't know what we don't know because we're still discovering things in our own reality
Hmm.
that all of this could very much so be something that is we just scientifically don't understand yet, but it is rooted in science, right?
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
Steve, let me jump on this for a second. So this makes me think of something I learned in 7th grade science. Okay.
Okay.
And I recall this vividly because it freaked out one of my classmates. But we were instructed that there is a parasite that lives within everyone's eyebrows. Okay, I forget what it's called. It was a
Tons,
long time ago.
tons of them, tons of them,
Gazillions of them. They're in there. They're always there. They've always been there. They will always be there.
always there.
This is. I think this is why Whoopi Goldberg shaves her eyebrows. Honestly, but
I hope
the
so, by the way.
the premise of this takes me there. There is a unique organism that has a lifespan. It has its place, and it's there for a reason. That I forget the exact rationale for why, but it's there on all of us. But yet we are completely unaware that it's
Yeah,
there, and
we
it's
have no
completely
idea.
unaware that it's part of a greater organism. Us, and here we are living symbiotically for perpetuity.
Yep.
We'll always be together, but we don't know about each other. Well,
We
we
have
know
no
by
idea.
learning it, but it's not a conscious knowledge anymore. Like I forgot all about it until we started talking about this.
You know, that also freaked me as
Yeah,
a
it
child when
probably
I
does.
learned
Now
about
I think
that
about it,
too.
like, but
I'm like, why? Oh, it's disgusting. I'm dirty. But yeah, no, you're 100% correct. I mean, there are organisms living all over our body at any
yes,
moment. I mean, like you said, the eyebrows. They're very specific organisms that live there, and they live and die right here, man. This is
Hmm.
where they live and die. And
this is as far as they go.
that's it, man. That is their existence. Is your eyebrow.
Hmm.
So I am interested to all the viewers out there. First off, I would like to know how many of you decide after this to go and shave your eyebrows, and second of all, how many of you go and just take a shower after this conversation? I am also very interested in that. But yes, you're 100%. 100%. Are we the eyebrow organisms?
On something else.
Maybe I replace the ants with eyebrow organisms.
There you
Angie, are you shaving your eyebrows or taking a shower? That's
go, or both.
Both. She's shaving them and then just bleach, straight bleach. All right, next slide because we're at an hour 45 here. I don't want to keep everybody terribly long. So the next slide is my final theory. And of course, we can't have any theory about Skinwalker Ranch without extraterrestrial civilizations, aliens. I don't have the hair for it, but I got the hands. So aliens, right? There are 100 100,000 million stars in our galaxy alone, the Milky Way galaxy. Just in our galaxy, not in our universe, not even in our visible universe, our galaxy. Around those stars orbits an estimated 100 billion planets. That is a lot of planets, all right? In the observable universe that we live in, the space that we've been able to photograph, there is an estimated 200 billion to 2 trillion galaxies. Those are massive numbers, all right? So think about that for 1 second. There are 200 billion to 2 trillion galaxies in just our observable universe, what we can see. We know there's more out there, it's just what we can see. And just in our galaxy alone, we know that there's an estimated 100 billion planets. If we take those 2 trillion galaxies, do you want to know how many planets that estimates to? Next slide, please. That number. Any guesses as to how to pronounce that number?
Can I go with Google billion?
You could.
Does it have a name? Like, there's a real name for this much? This many zeros?
10 septillion.
Billion. Wow. Wow.
That is how many planets are in our observable universe. What we can see. Right? It is a massive number. Like I can't even comprehend $1 million, let alone 10 septillion dollars. 10 reptilian. It's 10 reptilian planets. This is it. Everything outside of here is lizards. It's just all lizard people. All right, next slide. So, in the Milky Way galaxy alone, we're coming back to just our galaxy, just our massive neighborhood. There are as many as 40 billion Earth-sized planets orbiting what we refer to as the Goldilocks zone. Do you guys know what the Goldilocks zone is?
Yep.
All right. It is the habitable zone around a star where the temperature is just right. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. The porridge is just right to eat, right? The liquid water, it's just right for liquid water to exist on a planet. Now, again, we'll talk about that in a second, but 11 billion of these may be orbiting suns similar to ours. Right. So we know that there are suns of various sizes. There are suns that are smaller than ours. There are suns that are bigger than ours. And so you have to find the right zone in each star, right? In each sun. And so when we say that there are 40 billion Earth-sized planets in Goldilocks zones, meaning there are 40 billion Earth-sized planets habiting places that are exactly similar to ours, right? That means that water can exist. And 11 million of these are orbiting suns that are of the same or similar size as our sun. So the exact or very, very close same conditions. Right? In our galaxy alone, just our galaxy, there are as many as 16 known planets in this zone. All right. Actually, I think that's solar system, not galaxy. Exactly. I don't think we're alone. And so keep in mind, this is not made up numbers. I'm not making any of this stuff up. This is from Kepler data from 2013, November 2013. And keep in mind, again, we are only looking at planets that take into account that life is similar to us based on hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen, right? That does not take into account that, hey, guess what? We might not just be the only building blocks of life.
Right.
There could be more, right? And so it seems quite plausible that there is a greater chance for life to exist elsewhere in the universe than just the rock that we reside on, right? Very plausible. In fact, if we were to say that the universe is infinite in size, then that means that there is an infinite number of possibilities, which means arguably that there has to be life somewhere else, right? Because no matter how infinitesimally small a chance is for something to occur, it will occur in that sense. There will be life somewhere else. Again, there's a number of arguments against that, and there's a number of ratings saying, what is the likelihood that our civilization on our planet is going to be traveling the solar system, and it's actually on a grade of 1 through 3. And guess what? We're at 1, which is the lowest. But surprise, surprise, everybody! We're too busy cutting down forests and killing off the planet. However, it does beg the question that if there are other civilizations, how advanced are they? If there are advanced civilizations, where are they? Right? Like why so far have we just seen us? Right? If there's other things out there, then arguably we should see it. And so let's say that maybe there is some sort of advanced civilization out there. Are they interested in communicating with us? I would argue that if there is an advanced civilization out there that has mastered the art of space travel, would there be a reason to interact with us that can't even get off of our own rock? Probably not.
Or have they tried to communicate with us and we don't even recognize that they're trying to communicate with us?
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, they could be. Oh God, what is the word? Octopus. That is the weirdest creature, by the way. No bones in its body, and it makes no sense to me. Anyways, let's say that there are. Could they be using some sort of counter espionage to prevent us from understanding their actions? Right, and now that sounds very tinfoily, right? But let's say that that's true, right? That for some reason there is an advanced civilization or set of civilizations that they are not allowed to, by some law, interact with our planet until we meet a specific set of criteria. Maybe not killing each other, right, is a good criteria to start with. And so, maybe we're only witnessing things that we're either supposed to witness, um, and in that sense, deriving a truth from a half data is frivolous, right? And in fact, in that sense, it almost takes science completely out of this. And what we're seeing is maybe things that we're expected or supposed to see, but we're not supposed to, I guess, understand or comprehend. And so, in that sense, the rules of engagement are just thrown out the window, right? Yeah, are we experiencing something that we're meant to see these flashes of light or these objects floating through the air, but only so briefly as to garner interest, and that's it, fleeting moments, right? Which I would argue is the majority of paranormal, is fleeting moments, right?
Yeah.
And so again, I want to bring you back to our ants, or to our wonderful friends on our eyebrows. Are we able to comprehend what we can't even begin to explain, right? Is Earth just a fuel stop on an intergalactic 10-lane superhighway? Possibly. We could be like that crappy town everybody knows that has like 20 gas stations, a number of fast food restaurants, a very sketchy hotel, and that's it. Right? We all know it.
But I bet you there's a great dive bar there. So
possibility. You can get a number of lot lizards, but that's about it. Like, there's nothing else there. It is a pit stop. You stop, you fuel up, you leave. You stay too long, you could contract something or die. And so,
you never
we
leave.
always, yeah, or you never leave. So what's interesting to me is you take all of this, right, and you say, okay, I've got all these things on the floor now. I've got aliens, paranormal, I've got ghosts, I've got cryptids, I've got all these things. What if, I mean, I don't know. We always seem to catch glimpses of these things, right? You always get a blurry picture of Bigfoot. You never get a high def 1080p video of the Loch Ness monster, or Sasquatch or the Yeti. We always see these grainy, like, let me zoom in 20 times, and there's a ghost, and it's just matrixing, right? But we never get these very clear, crisp pictures. We never seem to be able to comprehend the entire picture, the big picture. And so maybe, just like the gorillas, Earth is still too primitive in its technology. Maybe we are the gorillas. We're unaware of galactic empires, borders, politics, or our own position in the galactic pecking order.
Hmm.
And so that, ladies and gentlemen, is Skinwalker Ranch. I loved this presentation because I feel like it has been a humbling experience. It first off makes me feel infinitesimally small, but it's forced me to unpack all of my preternatural packaging, all of my biasness, and take a look at it as a whole and instead of individual experiences.
Mm-hmm.
The experiences that are reported on this very small parcel of land relate all too well to experiences and stories shared across the globe, right? Now, research is being done into, to investigate claims of cryptids, aliens, UFOs, and in general, high strangeness. Um, and what's interesting is across all of these fields, it's all too similar to the same research and devices and methodologies that we use today in the paranormal field for investigating. And ultimately, it has forced me to keep my mind open to the endless possibilities that life has to offer. In the wise words of the philosopher Francis Bacon, they are ill discoverers that think there is no land when they can only see nothing but sea. And so I think ultimately it's through giving up these preconceived notions of the world around us and following whatever abyss nature creates that we will only begin to understand, learn, and grow.
Wow.
Nothing like a little 2-hour presentation that you thought was only going to be on. You're welcome.
So, wow. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, Steve. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
It is a massive topic, and I know I'm sorry it took so long, but I hope that those of you that are watching and watch this later, I don't know, it's mind blowing because it forces you to look at everything in a different way.
mm-hmm.
You get these ideas like don't even ask me what are ghosts. But a lot of people have this preconceived notion that ghosts are dead people, right? They're people that have their loved ones that have passed on.
Right.
I can argue what is a ghost for days, and that's another 2-hour presentation, by the way.
Exactly.
But
What are you doing next week? Hold on, wherever you
yeah,
will be back.
but it forces you to kind of get out of that pinholed view of the unknown, right?
Mhm.
Because it's all, to me, it's all things that are just yet to be discovered. We need to still understand them. Like I said, a couple thousand years ago, we were sacrificing people for the sun to come up, and like, what are the silly things that we're doing today with the same set of expectations, right? Like, what are the things that we just have not yet discovered or understood about our own reality?
Right.
Not even just the world around us, but our reality, what constitutes our experience in the world.
Hmm.
In a nerd light now, Angie. See a whole new light. Nerdy as hell.
Wow. So, yeah, Jamie, I think we can talk about this for on and off for the next couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to. We're long, obviously, on our time. We're usually around an hour. So
Yeah,
thanks everybody for sticking with us. It's been well worth the time. I beautiful presentation, Steve. Thank you. I want to say something, and I'm not trying to step around anything, but you don't know me, right? I don't know you very well, so
No, we
but
just
we're
met.
best friends now. We did this.
We're tight like tigers.
I used to live in Albuquerque and Santa Fe, New Mexico, and later in Phoenix. So I've spent a lot of time in the Southwest around the area with a former career. And one of my interests. Last week we did the Nazca lines in southern Peru.
Yep.
And for me that was always an interest because my collegiate career was to become an archaeologist. Didn't work out for me, but I have a keen interest in pre-Columbian America, Central and South America.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the Native American origins, and it's interesting because, as I lived in New Mexico, trucking all the towns on the Silver Trail, running up I-25, all these back towns and stuff, there's a lot of Native influence. There's still a lot of reservations. There's a lot of, historical sites, the idea of something like a skinwalker is prevalent all
Yes.
throughout the Southwest. It's not just a Utah thing. It's not just a Navajo or Ute thing.
No,
it is.
it's native
It's
tribes.
several tribes and multicultural kind of concepts. And it struck me, and as I moved into Arizona, traveling through the Superstition Mountains, very old. Now, a lot of this, of course, is mining towns. So that's how they got settled. But, there's native presence before. The same idea is there as well, And one thing that strikes me, and I've been near Skinwalker in the area, but I've never been at it, of course. And this would have been pre the Brandon Fuel era now.
Yeah.
There might have been some access. But, if you spend time there, especially at night, you will see the sky like you've never seen it before. There is just simply not the light pollution that we East Coasters have.
Oh, God,
because
it's
of our
horrible
buildup,
here.
And you're away from all the metropolitan areas. Albuquerque is a big place, but it's not that big comparable to like Phoenix. But, you get an hour out of town, any direction you want to go, just on the back of South Mountain in Phoenix, you're out in the desert, and the sky is just so bold and bright, you see things you wouldn't normally see in those light blinded areas.
Yeah.
And, hence, we're at Skinwalker, it's a bold sky. And, if you just spend time looking up every once in a while, and I recommend this for everybody, go outside and look up every once in a while, you'll see some cool stuff. You almost influenced me to say shit there. So, right? Some cool shit. But, you will. And, it's like paying attention, we're too busy. We keep going at things
God, yes.
from left to right and back again. Once we spend the time to actually do something like this for ourselves, we see things we may have never seen before. And it's beautiful. It's nothing else. It's just beautiful.
It's being
I
present.
recommend is if you ever have time to get out there, go do a place like this, spend some time there, get outside and look up, and hence the UFO concept or the UAP concept, sometimes you'll just see things that might actually be natural in the environment. I don't know, but I've seen some weird stuff too in those areas, in those spaces, in the same way. And I wasn't where I am now with consciousness of paranormal and things like that. I was much younger, so I didn't really consider what it could be other than just, that was weird, moving on.
Yeah.
No.
But I think, like you touched upon, it's one of those things of just being present and being aware of your surroundings. We're so busy, especially today. I mean, everybody's got their heads in this thing, right?
Yeah.
Like we're so busy that we don't understand or we're not aware of the things going on around us. And so, like, one of the questions that I get most often when we go on these investigations is, like public investigations, is like, why do you investigate at night? And everybody always says, well, it's because the spirits are out late at night and it's always 3. I'm like, I have people tell me left and right that 3 a.m. is that's when the spirits. I'm like, no, like that makes no sense. If you are suggesting that spirits are people that have passed away and they're still chilling, right? Like their normal rhythm is to be awake when it's daytime because that's how humans work.
And
we go to bed at night.
Is the witching hour 3 a.m. Central or Standard Time or daylight?
Oh gosh, yeah. Who knows, man? Like, is it GMT? Like, I don't know. Like, where do they align? Is this Greenwich? And so, it's just one of those things where it's like we're not present. We're not sitting here investigating at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. in the afternoon. If we were, we would get activity just the same. Arguably, I'd even say that you'd probably get more activity in the daytime because that's when like normal human beings operate, unless you're a night shift. And God bless you if you're a night shift. I did it for a couple months and I hated it. But one of the most interesting experiences, like paranormal experiences I had, was during the day, and it was just I was aware, and we saw, my wife and I both saw this person in front of us, and the next second they were gone. And it was broad daylight, but we were present and we were aware and we were looking at our surroundings, just like you're saying, Jamie. Like, go outside and look up and like get away from your phone. But also it's hard because sometimes you got to get away from like here I got Richmond's skylight that just illuminates the damn sky, so it's hard. But 100%.
So, well,
one more thing I want to add to this. So, and just bear with me, and I'm not plugging us to say this.
Chad's like, I gotta pee.
I know, I do too. So it's not that. But I did an episode. Did an episode on the Alaskan Triangle a little while back, and a lot of the things that are prevalent at Skinwalker or in the Utica Basin are also things that are prevalent there by by account. You know,
Mhm.
there is a cryptid called a kushtaka, which is from the native Tlingit tribe that is a half man, half otter. So not you know a shapeshifter per se. It has a form that is it draws you into the woods by giving the sound or signal of like a distressed child
Mm.
or a woman crying. And as you approach it, you know, as you go deeper into the woods, it will then take you and drown you in the water, and then you become one of them. You know, the
Man
idea
otter.
of you know, and it's come back to the lake, you know, with becoming a cryptid, you know,
Yeah.
in the reservoir. But there's uh, UFOs, UAPs, portals, you know, and I really appreciate the window image that you use, because when I did portals, I stole an actual thing from Marvel from Doctor Strange. So I'm figuring we're going to get through at some point. Um,
Well, I stole that
yours
one
was
from the
much
internet,
better.
so feel free to steal it because I
No,
stole it too.
I didn't look hard enough, apparently. So, but you know, it's interesting that we are in different, and this is a very remote region. You know, it's the Anchorage down and kind of on the angle over toward. I'm drawing blanks on places all of a sudden.
But I mean,
Barrow up to the
it's
north.
less people. It is
Right.
substantially less
It's a
folks.
ruralish area. This is far less populated than the region around Skinwalker, of course, just by you know
Yep.
the quantity of people that you described. And I that struck me as well as I was in that area. It's like this isn't the middle of nowhere. Absolutely not. You know, it's not that far, and it's been built up a lot more since I've been there.
Mhm.
But you know, out in Alaska, there's nobody. There are very few people anyway.
Yeah,
You know,
there are not that many folks.
and people go missing all the time. You know, so therefore it's just given to this is part of that triangle
Yep.
phenomenon, like we used to give credence to the Bermuda Triangle when ships and planes and people would disappear. It's just a phenomenon of this region because it happens to fall into these general coordinates.
Yep.
But the ideas are the same. You know, the story elements are the same with what people are seeing, what they're experiencing, what they believe. And it's fascinating to me because it's kind of like, you know, going back to the psyche concept of this, you know, we need to box this to something. We need to give it a name. And it's easier to do that in the context of you know phenomenon than it is to really get out there and do the work of figuring out what's really going on.
Yep.
And
I
it's
mean, that's how we as humans we like to make we are logic seeking creatures, right? We
yes,
have this absolute uh almost primal drive to create logic out of chaos. We
Mhm.
have to do it. We
yeah,
we are built to do that. And so when we can just you know what, that's a ghost. You know what, that over there, that is a long lost ancestor of humans. Like, it's just so easy to just boop, pop it into this box, put it over there, categorize this one,
Mhm.
categorize that one. But then it also, I think, creates a very short-sighted view of the world around us.
yeah.
It is
Please
you
stop.
you won't be able to.
Yeah.
You give it when you give it a name, you put it in that box. You stop looking at it anymore. It's done. It's on the shelf
It's
now.
Mhm.
explained. It's
Yeah,
Yeah.
explained at that point, and we're
it's a
good. We're good to go.
satisfactory explanation because it's already been labeled. Right.
Right. And you're right. We have so many things that we've explained that we need to go back and look at again.
Oh yeah,
Fair.
and we also need to go and buy some property in Alaska and make a TV show. So we need-
But you think it's cold now?
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
give it 3 years. We got to get a trademark out, everybody. Give it a
I will
couple
take the
years.
two good. I'll take the 2 good weeks in the summer. You guys can have the other 50 weeks of the year. I'm
uh,
good.
Jamie.
Uh,
So, all
I'll
right.
leave a
Well,
light on.
yeah, yeah. We should we should wrap this up.
we should-
It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. But I did want to ask.
Steve, thank you.
What's that?
I said, Steve, thank you. It's been
yeah, thank
awesome.
you guys for having me. Thank you for sticking around.
So Steve, I wanted to hit a little bit on Transcend Paranormal and Hanover Tavern because they're the two things that I think you have near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
Anything you want to tell us about what's going on there?
Yeah, so and I'll keep this short. So Transcend Paranormal is the paranormal team that I operate. We are a group of about 23 folks today that works with different historical locations in Central Virginia as well as outside. But we're kind of in Central Virginia, so we do a lot of our work here. We partner with historical locations to fundraise for them. So the way that we fundraise is through public investigations, presentations, lectures, ghost tours, you name it. We volunteer for other events, but 100% of the proceeds goes directly to the location. That is our that's how we like to operate. is all the money goes straight to the location, and it goes towards historic preservation, restoration, educational outreach, and community programming. Right. So just trying to do what we can to give back to the community. One of the places, we talked a little bit about the Hanover Tavern very beginning is the tavern, and I'm actually the president of the board there, and we have created a Paracon. And because I'm original at naming, it's called the Hanover Tavern Paracon. And it is a fundraising conference. 100% of the proceeds goes directly to the tavern, to the foundation. It's going to go to continuous, restoration of the building. For those of you that have ever looked into owning a historic location, it is ungodly expensive. Something is always broken, and something always needs to be fixed. And not only that, but because it's old, it is very expensive to do. And so that money is going to go towards helping support that. We also bring in somewhere around 3,000 school age students every year through field trips, and we teach them about Virginia history, U.S. history, and it's a lot of fun. It teaches, towards SOL topics. So, for those of you in the area, SOL is like standards of learning exams. And so we're going to have a big Paracon. It's January 19th and 20th, 2024. We're going to have a lot of fun. All of the speakers that are coming, none of them are getting paid. They're all coming down out of the kindness of their own hearts to share their wisdom and knowledge, and coming down on their own dime to come and support the tavern and support the effort. So it's going to be a great time. Everybody's going to have a lot of fun. We will have a full list actually have a full list of speakers out there. If you look up the Hanover Tavern Paracon on Facebook, or if you go to Transcend Paranormal, you can find it there too. But we have a bunch of great folks. The Ghost Finders are going to be there. Patty Negri is going to be there. If you want to see weird me, I will be there. But Brandon Masulo, Dave Schumacher, Chad, are you coming?
I'm going to try. I'm not
we
sure.
We might have Chad. We don't know, but we might have Chad. David Taylor from Our Heart and Lives, and Christy are going to be there. I can't even think right now of all the folks, because we have a massive list of people. Angie, you need to. So I like how you're like, wish I lived closer. And then I said, oh yeah, Patty's going to be there. And you're like, oh, I might come. I might try to make it now. Thanks,
I think the key question is, if you show, will you have eyebrows?
I may not. I don't know.
Angie, though,
Angie, I don't know. I already went through the existential crisis of little things living here and here. So I continue to keep mine fully aware that they're there. But Angie says no. But that's coming up. Tickets are available. We're gonna have Patty is gonna be and Rob Thompson are gonna be giving a gallery reading during the day, and we're gonna have a slew of speakers on topics from every side of the paranormal. One of the big things that I always like to do is include skeptics. So we're gonna have Dave Schumacher kind of talk about the skeptical side of paranormal investigating, to science, history, metaphysics. I want to have something that is catered to everybody, so that you can get a wide breadth of knowledge in the field. I don't think there's one good way to skin a cat, and so why not invite everybody, and hopefully everybody can learn something.
Yeah.
So that is the big event coming up.
Yeah,
so it's next year.
Good. Yeah.
So
we'll try to plug that for you, Steve, as it gets closer too.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
So we're just gonna hit up some of our stuff that's coming up. Let's see. We got 2 investigations left at Boobies Brewery. Steve, you got to come up when you're.
Is that how you pronounce it? Because I have Boobies. Okay.
Yep.
Boobies. Because I've always I've heard about it, and I always thought it was Bubes or something, and I was like, it can't be.
No, it's Boobies Brewery. Yep.
So yes, it can be. Yeah.
So yeah, we have one this weekend that I'm not going to be at. You're going to be there this time, though, Jamie, right?
I will. Yep.
And one on the 16th.
You're gonna be down my way this weekend.
Yeah, I'm coming down to Williamsburg this weekend. So, so check those out. Coming up on the show next week is Krampus.
Yeah. So hey, this is my episode. Actually, the next 2 are mine. Because somebody's on vacation and stuff. But whatever. But and I have to give Chad some credit here, because I was not watching the calendar, but December 5th is Krampus Eve. December 6th would be the day that Santa and Krampus, either or, would make their jolly rounds to either give you good things or give you lots of smacks with sticks and worse, perhaps. So we're going to try to have some fun with that episode. And then the Jersey Devil coming up behind it. Here in the East Coast, the Central East Coast, the Jersey Devil is a legit thing in the Pine Barrens in southern New Jersey. It's been around for hundreds of years, a documented thing. So we're going to hopefully have some guests with us there that have had some experience in the Pine Barrens.
I was born in Jersey, so I'm like
right.
Jersey Devil.
Well, you're welcome back. So, hey, you know how to find us, right? So, and sadly, they named one of the worst hockey teams in the NHL after the Devil, but whatever. Go Flyers. But I'm a Philly guy. What can I say?
Yep.
I'm a Philly guy too, buddy.
All right, we're
I
good.
took off
we're
my
good.
Eagles hoodie before I got on here, so I wouldn't offend lots of people about how.
I had to consider what I was wearing before getting here too. So same thing. But with that, hopefully we'll have some good input from those who've been there, as well as the background, the story, and all that stuff. And then Chad has a really exciting episode coming up on the 19th with the Staticom project with our good friends Ron Iacovetti and Lourdes Gonzalez. And the great work that they're doing. This is such a cool thing. We had some of this tease of this in a previous episode a week or two ago, but this is going to be a full-fledged all-in episode. So,
fun fact: Ron and Lourdes will be at the Paracon, and on the 19th, January 19th, I think that's the date. I cannot remember the dates, but they're going to be performing a Staticom session inside of the tavern.
Oh, fantastic!
So December 19th is going to be a very, very cool show. I'm not saying that the Krampus and the Jersey Devil shows aren't going to be.
Okay, I get it.
Not saying they won't be.
We are,
but
cool
I'm
down with that.
Ron,
I really am.
I love Ron and Lourdes. And
they're great.
I have sat in on a number of Staticom sessions, and they are mind blowing as well. Like equally as mind blowing. Some of the experiences that I have had in them. Some of the things that Ron and Lourdes have shared with me over the years of tweaking and getting to where they are today. It is crazy. I have never heard some of the things that I've heard and experienced in these Staticom sessions. I have never experienced anywhere else. It is so cool.
Yeah. They had one over the weekend. I forget where they were. The Ritz.
Yeah, something like that. I remember there. Yep.
Yeah, and Ron's gonna send me the tape to listen, like the recording to listen to and go through.
They are so neat.
Yeah. So
Jamie,
cool. You're in for a treat. So.
They're gonna send you a tape. How old are you? Come on.
Okay, they're gonna send me the file. You know what I meant.
It's got to pop it into his VCR.
Reel to reel. Track player and his console stereo.
Well, anyway, we're pushing the time limit tonight.
Oh my gosh, we're getting punchy, that's for sure.
It was definitely worth it.
Steve,
thank you so much for coming on tonight and sharing with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
You bet. If you have another topic you want to present, let us know.
I think I have more 1 hour topics. This one, I have
in an hour. Yeah.
You said that about this one. Hold on.
This one is so hard. Like I have given this presentation, believe it or not, in 45 minutes.
I was there. Yeah.
But it's so like, I feel like to understand just how in depth this is, you got to take a little bit of time, because when I feel like I'm doing it a disservice almost when I'm like, okay, this is not, oh, we're done. Everybody have fun. Like you don't get that level of in-depth awareness around like all the crazy things that are going on. And then like you're saying, Alaska and the same exact experiences somewhere else. It's just crazy. It's crazy stuff. It's a crazy world we live in.
Yeah. It's all around us. And it goes to the whole premise. Like, are we really aware of what's happening? And Staticom's a great example too.
Yep.
Are we really aware of what's right beside us at times?
100%.
And we're not, clearly.
So.
It's deep, dude.
Very deep.
Love it.
So again, thank you, Steve. Thank everybody who watched and hung in there, and anybody who's going to watch us online. Send people. This was a great episode. If you have people who are interested in the topic, send them to the link. It'll be there. Definitely check it out. Check us out. Any last minute thoughts, guys?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to say every Tuesday at 9 we're here. So if you had fun, we're not as cool as Steve. Sorry, but
I don't know
I'd like
about
to think
that.
you do okay. We are not. Our regular episodes are much shorter.
This is a two-parter.
Yeah.
All right.
We're gonna have the 2-part this week of a bathroom break. Like the old. I'm gonna go old school with the talking about tapes. Back in the day when you had VCRs, you had the long movies that was in 2 discs or 2 cassettes. You had to stop. That was your break.
Yeah.
Now, not the same.
So. All right. Well, if you guys are good, I'm going to roll the credits. Steve, hold on for a minute, and we'll talk to you on the other side. All right.
Thank you
All right,
guys.
thanks,
Appreciate
everybody.
it.
Good night, everybody.